Hi, welcome, Broad Street Media. Want to welcome our interpreter, our guest interpreter for this interview. Hi, what's your name? Hi, my name is Kayleen Bangura. This is my sign name. Perfect. Where are you from? I was born in Trinidad and Tobago. Cool. Perfect. What attracted you to learn sign language? Why? How? Interesting. When I was 20, I was working at the insurance company Clico. I used to go and buy these chick tracts at the Christian store. So I went in one day and I was searching and I saw this book in passing saying, "Talk to the deaf." I was like, what's a deaf? So I bought my books and I left, and I felt in my heart to go back and purchase that book, Talk to the Deaf. I did. I went home and I read the entire book. I learned all the signs. But I didn't have anyone to communicate with in sign language. And so I used to use the TV. My mother used to say, "What are you doing?" 2 years later, I met my first deaf friend. Her name is Abina. Wow, cool, interesting. As you progressed and you had to interpret for the first time, were you nervous? I met Abina and I signed English. My name is, I am. Abina said, no, cancel that. Come and look at the deaf community in town. So we went to Port of Spain and there were many deaf people there. And I took it all in and I passed. The deaf began to ask me, "Are you deaf or are you hearing?" I said, "I'm hearing." They were like, "Nah, you're signing too sharp, man." At that time, I was not a believer in Christ, and I would hang out with the deaf and go to parties and stuff. And then I accepted Jesus as Lord and Savior and went to church. I carried 2 deaf persons with me. They stood on either side of me, and I would sign for them. But then they began to bring more deaf into the church. I could no longer stand up there. And so I asked to stand at the front. Then as time began to progress, I realized I cannot sign English. I had to sign the way of the deaf people. And so as time progressed, I improved my skill. What made you decide you want to become an interpreter and support the deaf? Did you go to interpreting class or something? I went to the Cascade School for the Deaf to get certificates. But they didn't have an interpreter certificate because really the Caribbean does not have an association for interpreters. So what did I do? I continued interacting with the deaf community, and also I read a lot online, and I did a few classes online from America, how to properly interpret for the deaf, for it to be clear and understood. Cool. Did you interpret on the TV? Are you the one that interpreted the song "It Bunnin' Out"? A lot of the hearing people were upset about it. What is your view? Oh, that's an interesting, funny story. Hearing people know that song, that special song, it has dirty words in it. They know that. For us hearing people, we use a lot of concepts and analogies to to cover over the true meanings or etc. of songs. But of course, we know that the deaf are blunt. Yeah? So when I heard the song, I understood the assignment. Sign it so that the deaf community would understand clearly what was happening. So I signed the song, and then I went home and I was relaxing and sleeping, and my phone kept buzzing, and I saw a message from my friend saying check Facebook. So I did. I was like, oh my word, this thing gone viral. But it wasn't a bother to me because I just signed it for the deaf to understand what the issue was about. So I did my job.
And it's prompted the Ministry
Let's look at the video.
to launch an investigation. That's Singing Bubbles with a group of primary school pupils singing along to her popular.
Wow. It's important for interpreters to get the clear meaning across to the deaf community. Yes. It's not easy at times, but it's necessary. Next question. How many years have you been interpreting? From Trinidad to now? 24 years. But interpreter, 20 years. Ooh, that's a long time that you've been interpreting. Wow. Why did you feel the need to adopt 2 little deaf children? The boy, his name is Rikai. I met him and I was teaching him signs. He came to my home every day and I would teach him sign language. Then finally I asked his mom and grandmother if he can stay with me to be fully immersed into the sign language and deaf community. And they said yes. And he has been with me ever since. Acacia, I met her, I think in 2018. She would come to my home every day and I would teach her signs. Then I was ready to leave my homeland of Trinidad and Tobago. I asked if I could take her with me. Her mother agreed. And so the 2 deaf are with me. It's beautiful that you're taking care of these 2 deaf kids and helping them to improve in their signs, to grow up skilled. Yes. I realized we traveled a few different islands. Why? I visited different countries, America, Canada, and I've met the deaf there. We've become friends and have been friends ever since. I remember when I visited Grenada and I met the deaf there and we're still friends to today. But in 2019, I made the decision for a new life and I left my homeland of Trinidad and Tobago and we went to St. Lucia. I met the deaf there too. St. Lucia was wonderful and nice. It didn't feel like home though. In June of 2020, we decided to move to Barbados. When the plane touched down, I told my 2 hearing children, we are home. And I truly love Barbados. Now I'm here 2 years. Wow, cool. 2 years now in Barbados. How do you feel? Wonderful. Can you tell me the differences between your homeland and Barbados? Barbados is nice. I remember when I first touched down here, the airport was empty. There was few people because of the coronavirus. Myself and my 4 children, and we had 13 suitcases. There was nobody around. The place was empty, really. I was trying to figure out how to get the 13 suitcases and my 4 children over to the exit. I remember the guard talking to me and she kept saying this word, wanna. I was like, who is wanna? So I ignored her, yeah? And then again, she said, wanna leaving that there? I said, excuse me, are you talking to me? She said, yes. I said, I don't understand the word you're saying, wanna? She began to laugh. She said, wanna means you. It's Barbados slang. I was like, oh, okay, interesting. I said, I was so sorry for ignoring you. I didn't understand. I didn't know the word that you were saying. So we got into the blue ZM and we were going off to the house. And I overheard the driver talking to the lady in the front. Of course, I didn't really know them, but I kept hearing the driver saying the word the body over and over. I know in Trinidad, when you say the body, it means the person has died. So I said, okay, when they finished talking, I would say that I was so sorry about the person who died. The driver said, dead? Who dead? Nobody dead? The body means a live person. Oh, it's the different culture. Wow. Okay, so I learned. The third thing, I remember seeing the word bakes at a store. I said, okay, it's a good idea. I'll buy for myself and the children to share. I told the gentleman to give me 4 bakes because I know in Trinidad, bakes are big. You can share it up. I wasn't paying attention to the gentleman. I was talking with a person. And finally, he gave me. And then I took the thing home and I opened the box and I was like, oh my word, what's this? These 4 little things? I said, maybe the man didn't understand me. So I called my friend who lives here in Barbados, who's also Trini, and I said, what's up with the bakes? And she began to holler. She said, that's Barbados bakes. I said, wow, interesting. I gave my oldest son to eat it. And it was 4 bakes, so I mean, he finished it in no time. Anyway, so the next day, I went and I said, please give me 14 bakes. The man laughed. I said, wow, Barbados and Trinidad bakes are so different. That was interesting for me. Thank you for telling us your experience, your story. How did you meet the deaf? How did you make contact with the deaf here in Barbados? Okay, really? I saw a newspaper article about a deaf lady, hard of hearing lady named Joy. I tried to contact her. I think she was a little bit skeptical, like, you know, who is this? But I tried contacting her over and over again, and finally, she told me about you, Dario. So I contacted you, and the rest is history. Then I met more and more deaf at different events, the funerals, at the school. I met some in town. There's this lady who works at the bar in town. Every time I see her, we'd wave to each other. Yes, it's interesting, the deaf community of Barbados. Remember when I contacted you to come and help interpret at Dale's funeral here in Barbados? How did you feel? When you contacted me about a funeral to volunteer, I was happy because I love signing. I love interpreting. My personality is very friendly and funny. Added with the signs, it's perfect. When I got there at the funeral, I was happy, but a little bit nervous. Because I know that people would be looking at me, you know, who is this lady, and, you know, if I'm signing well or not. So I was a little bit worried. But as I looked at the deaf faces, I realized they were paying attention to me. I was happy to see that when I signed, the deaf and the hearing were laughing at the exact same time, which gave me more confidence to keep signing. As I kept looking at their faces, and I saw the deaf saying, yes, I remember that happened, and that's so true, it gave me more and more confidence.
I said, you did not even wait for me, and I did see that how his party laugh. He would visit me at my office in the Bell, where he would sit and chat about his new endeavors between gulping down cups of water. Dale was a walker and he needed his fuel. Dale was a serious man.
Well, and so they build big houses, accumulate financial instruments and land that they can then bequeath to their children and children's children. But we find...
I see. Yes. Not just one time, but 2 times you signed at the funerals. Cool. Recently, at the death funeral, you came and you met the different deaf and you were interacting with them. The deaf was saying, who is she? And they asked, are you deaf? No. Why did they ask you deaf? Because you're signing like them. That always happens. Why? Because it's so boring to always just be using the signs. Me, I look at the deaf and I try to copy their facial expression, their body language. All 3 together are important to really show that you are signing well, just like the deaf, you know, the facial expression to show happy, sad, angry, etc. So for me, sometimes the deaf look at me like, are you deaf or are you hearing? Interesting. Wow, you sign so sharp. Wow. Yes, I remember at my school the same thing. There was one teacher. He signed just like deaf. The deaf would be like interacting with him and stuff. You are something like him with your interaction and your way of signing. How long do you think an interpreter should stand up and sign? What do you think? Can you tell me some about the rules? When I first began interpreting, years ago, of course, there were few interpreters. So interpreters used to stand for hours and sign. But now there are more and more interpreters. So remember that when this person is standing up there talking, they're speaking English, using English words, concepts, etc. The interpreter now, the sign language interpreter, must fix the sign so that it matches and is clear for the deaf community. I think it's important for all deaf to understand. The basic deaf, the average, the very intelligent, late learners, etc. I want all the deaf to understand, so that when I hear what is being said, I want it to be clear. Wow, when you sign in, it's so much that you have to take in and then dish out. So I think 20-30 minutes is good. And then exchange with the other interpreter so that you can have time to relax your mind, to refresh yourself, and then go back at your time, clear-headed, etc. Because if you sign there signing all the time, it can become very tedious. Because remember, English words and signs don't always match up. For example, my name is Kayleen. Sign language, me, Kayleen. End of story. Simple. Or, I'm going tongue. Me, say, left in for tongue. Simple. It's clear for the entire deaf community. Remember, the deaf are using their eyes to see and to hear. And if you're boring and just full of signs, it can become a yawn. All this English can make a person drowsy, sleepy. That's not good. Right, I get that point. So my other question. What do you think about the clothes for interpreter and the background? What should the colors be? What about earrings and chain, etc.? Would you like to inform me? I remember asking a friend of mine in the States a long time ago, as per the background, if the person is of a darker complexion, the background should be lighter, so it doesn't give a distraction on the eyes. Because remember, the deaf are using their eyes to read, to see. Big earrings, big chain. It can be a distraction, because especially when you're moving around, yeah? It's best you take it off, in my opinion, and wait until you finish signing, and then continue your way of life. Me, I'm dark, so my clothes would need to be lighter, so it doesn't camouflage with my skin color. What's your sign for the Caucasians? Okay. For the Caucasians, their background be a little bit darker so that they don't blend into their background. We want the signs to be clear, crisp, and precise for the deaf community. This information is good for the deaf community so they'll understand what the interpreter is supposed to, their color, their background, so that they can help each interpreter improve and hone in their skills. The Caribbean does not have a registry of interpreters. Mostly the volunteered interpreters. It's tough, but we, the deaf community, want to encourage our interpreters. They should interact, yes, with the deaf community and maybe do more workshops, etc. So that both parties are comfortable when it's time to sign. Even have an interpreting team, yes, that we work hand in hand. It's important to work together, yes. Very, very important for interpreters to interact with the deaf community, to know the best way to sign, because that's your language. Yes, the language of the deaf community. That's right. How you feel about interpreting in Trinidad? I loved interpreting in Trinidad. I wish that more people would learn signs, so I deaf don't really need an interpreter per se. For example, in the bank, the deaf need to carry an interpreter. If you want a loan, you don't want this other person to know your information that you're going to borrow money. It's awkward. For me, if the bank tells me no, it's just me knowing the information. But for a deaf person, when the bank says no, it's now me, the interpreter, and the bank now know that I've been rejected, denied. Yeah, because for the deaf person, it's like, oh my, now the interpreter knows I've been rejected, denied. Or like going to the doctor. That's a private experience. My business, like cancer or AIDS or whatever. It feels awkward to have to carry this interpreter. I know that the deaf want clear communication, so interpreter is necessary. But if more people learn signs, then the deaf can just go for themselves into these special places, one-on-one, right? Yeah, not two-on-one, but one-on-one. Yeah, so important. Anything else you want to add about the Caribbean, about Barbados, anything? Well, two things. One, yes, so they are hearing interpreters. But they're also deaf interpreters. We call them DIs. You're like, what? Deaf interpreters? Yes. So it means that the deaf person is the one in front of the camera and the hearing person is the one behind. You can't see them. So the hearing person is signing, you know, how they know from their first language, English. But the deaf person is now going to take that and with their skill and their ability or their knowledge of the signs and be able to really put it forward so that the entire deaf community knows and understands. Of course, including their facial expression and body language. Then it's clear to all of the deaf community. So they call them DIs, deaf interpreter. And Trinidad has a few. Barbados can have the same thing because they have many intelligent deaf people here, like you, Dario, and Joy. And there are others, yes, that can be chosen to become deaf eyes. It gives the deaf a sense of pride, a sense of purpose. This is my language. The second thing, I want the deaf, I want Barbados public to know that the deaf can. Please stop with the, you can't hear, you can't talk, oh gosh. With your facial expression and your body language so much, stop that. My gosh, Dario is so skilled with his videography and picture taking. Joy has such a skill with the painting. Please, there's no time for the, oh my gosh. Nakira has skill with the baking. Please stop with the, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry for you. The only thing the deaf can do is hear. In America, they have deaf doctors, vets, dentists, nurses, you name it, they have it. Deaf people there. They have their own business. In the Caribbean, the deaf can too. So please stop with the mercy me and the... Sometimes I go out with my two deaf kids. I remember last year we went to Massey. And the cashier was talking with Acacia. She was saying something and I said, well, she signed, she's deaf. The person's like, the cashier was like, oh my, okay, right. I was like, okay, what's the issue? You sorry for what? She talks all day. Yeah, she talks all day. It's just that you don't know her language. Do you feel sorry for people who speak Spanish? Do you say mercy you because you speak Spanish? No. So why are you saying, oh my gosh? She has her language. She chats. She can communicate. Yeah. She's perfect. Stop with the mercy. Oh my gosh. That's a bad habit. Perfect. Beautiful story. Deaf individuals here in Barbados have a lot of skills. Some of them have their own business, etc. Thank you for your time coming in. Thank you for all that you've shared with us. Anytime, yes? Thank you for your interview, your time. Until we meet again.